Welcome to EngloStories. Today we have a fascinating tale that will help you improve your English while enjoying a timeless story. The Fisherman and His Wife is a classic fairy tale collected and published by the brothers Grimm, Jacob, and Wilhelm Grimm in the early 19th century. These German brothers traveled throughout their homeland gathering folk stories that had been passed down through generations by word of mouth. This particular story first appeared in their famous collection, Children's and Household Tales, in 1812. This enchanting tale explores the dangers of greed and the importance of being content with what you have. It follows the journey of a simple fisherman and his ambitious wife after they encounter a magical fish with extraordinary powers. As their wishes grow increasingly demanding, the consequences become more and more dramatic. Will their desire for more ultimately lead to happiness or disaster? Let's find out together. Now let's begin the story. Long ago, in a small fishing village by the sea, there lived a poor fisherman and his wife. Their home was nothing more than a small, dirty hut made of mud and wood. The roof often leaked when it rained, and the cold sea winds would blow through the cracks in the walls during winter. Despite these hardships, the fisherman was a calm and content man who enjoyed the simple pleasures of life. Every morning, the fisherman would wake up early, take his old fishing rod and a small wooden boat, and row out to sea. He would spend hours patiently waiting for fish to bite, watching the seagulls circle above and feeling the gentle rocking of his boat on the waves. In the evening, he would return home with whatever small catch he had managed to get that day. His wife, however, was very different. She was never satisfied with their humble life and constantly complained about their poverty. She would look enviously at the larger houses in the village and dream of having fine clothes, servants, and the respect that came with wealth and power. The sea near their village was vast and deep, with waters that changed color with the weather. On sunny days, it sparkled blue and green, but when storms approached, it turned dark and threatening. The local fishermen spoke of strange creatures living in its depths, beings with magical powers that were rarely seen by human eyes. It was in these waters that our story begins, on a day that seemed ordinary, but would change the fisherman and his wife's lives forever. One morning, the fisherman went fishing as usual. He sat in his boat for hours, but not a single fish took his bait. Just as he was about to give up and go home, he felt a strong pull on his line. Excited, he reeled in what he thought would be a large fish for dinner. To his great surprise, he pulled up a large, beautiful flounder with scales that shimmered like gold and silver in the sunlight. But what shocked him even more was when the fish began to speak. "Please, kind fisherman," said the flounder in a clear voice, "I am not an ordinary fish. I am actually an enchanted prince. Please don't kill me, throw me back into the sea, and I will swim away happily." The fisherman was so startled to hear a fish talk that he couldn't say a word for a moment. Then, recovering from his surprise, he replied, "Don't worry. I wouldn't want to eat a talking fish, especially an enchanted prince. Swim free." And with that, he gently released the flounder back into the water. When the fisherman returned home, his wife asked, "Did you catch anything today?" "I caught a flounder," explained the fisherman, "but he told me he was an enchanted prince, so I let him go." His wife's eyes widened with amazement and then narrowed with calculation. "Did you ask him for anything in return?" A reward, perhaps. No, said the fisherman. Why would I? You fool, cried his wife angrily. We live in this miserable hut while you let a magical fish swim away without asking for anything. Go back at once and tell him we want a nice cottage instead of this horrible place. The fisherman didn't want to go, but his wife kept insisting until he had no choice. Reluctantly, he returned to the sea, which was no longer calm and blue, but slightly darker and moving restlessly. Standing at the shore, he called out, "Flounder, flounder in the sea, come, I pray, and talk to me. My wife Ilsebil must have her will and sends me to beg a favor still." The water bubbled, and the flounder appeared. "What does she want?" asked the fish. "My wife is unhappy with our hut," said the fisherman apologetically. "She wishes for a comfortable cottage instead." "Go home," said the flounder. "Her wish is granted." When the fisherman returned home, he could hardly believe his eyes. Where their old hut had stood was now a charming cottage with a small garden. His wife stood in the doorway beaming with pride. "Isn't this wonderful?" she exclaimed, showing him around the neat, clean rooms with comfortable furniture, a proper kitchen, and even flower beds outside. For a few days, the fisherman's wife seemed truly happy and content with their new home. But the happiness of the fisherman's wife did not last long. After a week in the cottage, she began to frown again. "This cottage is too small," she complained. "Why should we live in a simple cottage when we could have a grand stone palace? Go back to the fish and ask for a palace." The fisherman was troubled. "We should be grateful for what we already received," he said. "The flounder has been very kind already." "Nonsense!" his wife snapped. "A magical fish can easily give us more. Now go." With a heavy heart, the fisherman returned to the sea. This time, the water was gray and choppy, with dark waves crashing against the shore. He called for the flounder, who appeared looking concerned. After hearing the new request, the fish simply said, "Go home. She has her palace." Indeed, their cottage had been transformed into a magnificent palace of shining stone, with towers and banners flying in the wind. Servants bowed to the fisherman as he entered. His wife sat on a throne, wearing elegant clothes and jewelry, surrounded by luxury. Still, her satisfaction lasted only a few days. Soon, her eyes gleamed with new ambition. "Being the owner of a palace isn't enough," she declared. "I want to be king of the entire land." Despite his protests, the fisherman was forced to return to the sea, which was now dark violet and angry, with high waves and a cold wind. The flounder granted this wish too, and the fisherman found his wife wearing a golden crown, ruling over an enormous kingdom. But even this incredible power wasn't enough. Within days, she demanded to be emperor, then pope, each time sending her reluctant husband back to the increasingly stormy sea. The flounder continued to grant her wishes, and each time the fisherman returned to find his wife in greater positions of power, surrounded by increasing splendor and countless servants, obeying her every command. Finally, one evening, as the fisherman sat watching his wife giving orders to her subjects, she called him over, with a determined look in her eyes. "I have decided," she announced, "that I want to be like God, with the power to control the sun and moon." The fisherman was horrified. "Please don't ask for this," he begged. "No human should want such power. The flounder has been generous, but this request goes too far." "Are you refusing to go?" his wife asked coldly. "Remember that I am now as powerful as any ruler on earth. I can have you punished if you disobey me." Trembling with fear and sadness, the fisherman made his way back to the sea. The water was almost black now, with massive waves crashing violently against the shore. The sky was filled with dark clouds, and a fierce wind howled around him. He could barely stand upright as he called out to the flounder. When the fish appeared, its once bright scales now looked dull in the darkness. The fisherman could barely speak as he shared his wife's outrageous demand. The flounder looked at him silently for a long moment. Then, without a word, it turned and disappeared beneath the turbulent waves. The fisherman waited, unsure what to do. Finally, as the storm grew even stronger, he turned and made his way back toward the palace, struggling against the powerful wind. As he walked, he noticed the grand buildings and monuments of his wife's empire beginning to fade like mist in the morning sun. The magnificent castles, the armies, the crown jewels, all were disappearing before his eyes. By the time the fisherman reached the place where the splendid palace had stood, he found only the small, dirty hut from the beginning of our story. The heavy rain leaked through the roof, and the wind whistled through the cracks in the walls. Inside, he found his wife sitting on the old wooden stool, dressed in her ragged clothes. All her power, wealth, and glory had vanished completely. They were exactly as they had been before they met the magical flounder, poor, but with the essential things they needed to live. The fisherman never spoke of what had happened. He simply resumed his daily fishing trips, bringing home small catches to feed them both. His wife never mentioned the flounder again, and over time, she learned to appreciate their simple life by the sea. And so the fisherman and his wife lived out the rest of their days in their humble hut, neither rich nor powerful, but with enough to meet their basic needs. The story of the fisherman and his wife teaches us a valuable lesson about greed and contentment. It shows how constantly wanting more and more can lead to unhappiness and ultimately cause us to lose what we already have. The fisherman's wife was never satisfied, no matter how much she received, and her endless desires eventually led to her downfall. This tale reminds us to appreciate what we have rather than always focusing on what we lack. True happiness comes not from gaining more possessions or power, but from finding contentment with our current situation and being grateful for the simple blessings in our lives. As the saying goes, enough is as good as a feast. Knowing when to be satisfied is true wisdom. Did you enjoy this classic Brothers Grimm tale? If you found this story helpful for your English learning journey, please like this video and share it with friends who are also learning English. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Which character did you relate to more, the fisherman or his wife? Follow EngloStories as we upload a story daily, so that you can look forward to our next video. See you tomorrow for another language learning adventure.